Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. This is Hunter, David, Steven, and Shane. Say what up, boys.
What's going on, everybody?
Hello.
What up, nerds?
We are back, this time doing the final part to our commander grades for the multicolored legendary creatures from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. That is right. This is part 3. If you haven't seen the first or second part, check the description down below for those commander grades, as well as the precons and the monocolored grades as well. But if you are new here, what this series is we talk about the legendary creatures from the set, talk about him as a potential commander, give him a grade for our individual selves, and then a final average grade between all four of us. This is strictly opinion based, not necessarily gospel. This is just how we feel. Right, Dave?
This is gospel.
But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, because you don't want to miss out on any content. And this first card we're talking about is Miriam, Herd Whisperer. It is a green and a white for a 3/2 legendary creature, human druid. It says as long as it's your turn, mounts and vehicles you control have hexproof. It also says whenever a mount or vehicle you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Yep. It's always one of those cards, huh?
What do you mean?
Steven loves this card, dude.
I
I'm gonna
don't
giddy
love
up.
this
I'm gonna
card, but I
giddy up
don't.
into
I don't
that
think.
battle.
I don't think this card's bad.
Makes one of us.
I don't know if I
Steven.
like this card at all.
So this comes down incredibly early. It is a 3/2, so like it is going to be like above, I guess, power for mana value ratio. And then being able to give your mounts and or vehicles hexproof, I do actually think is fairly powerful. Mounts, obviously, we've only had one set to play around with for that, so we haven't really seen like a ton with it. But I mean, there are some decent mounts. Vehicles, however, we've had a couple of sets at this point of which you've gotten some vehicles. So there are some vehicles that are relatively powerful, and then past that point, being able to buff them up beyond that is relatively nice. So I'm not totally down on this commander, especially since like I mentioned earlier, it's 2 mana. This thing is incredibly cheap.
I'm
think-
down on this card.
I'll
I'm
say
sorry.
I think if you're looking to play, I mean, mounts, sure, like you said, new thing. Vehicles, go play Shurikai, dude. Play this.
I don't
Yeah.
think you play Shurikai to play vehicles.
I would. Why not? You
Well,
just like
there's
doing
definitely
combos.
different vehicle cards that are in different colors. Is this the best one we've seen? No. I think
No.
you want to go more blue if you're doing vehicle stuff because those are artifacts. Mounts, like you said, a real quick off the cuff question for you guys. Will we get mounts in later sets? What do you think, Dave?
I think that we will, just the same way that we got vehicles in later sets, but I don't think that they're going to be something that's going to pop up like routinely. I think it's going to be something that we might not see for like another year, kind of similar to what we got whenever it came to like the introduction of battles.
I haven't seen those still.
Yeah.
I know, but like they are going to come back, and I think that mounts will come back.
Yeah, I think if
Yeah.
the set permits it. I mean, hey, you never know. In Bloomborough, we could see some mice riding leaves or something. I don't know.
Right,
leaf.
leaves.
I don't know, dude.
Perfect.
Yes, the 1 mana green Mount Leaf.
Going
Or-
back to the card. Yeah, I still don't like it. You guys can try to convince me more, but
Nah.
I'm still not on board here. I mean, yeah, cool. Mounts and vehicles have hexproof. Kill this, and then what?
I think as of now, not here for this card.
What do you think, Steven?
I mean, I'm kind of a little higher on it than you and Shane. I just tons of creatures that do things for you when they become tapped, saddling, and I guess using them as mounts or crewing for vehicles. I think is going to be really good. Is this like a super strong commander? Definitely not. Is it fun? I think so.
Look,
If
whenever
you
they print
say
sort
so.
of saddle and horseshoes, and the creature becomes the mount, you're going to be very sorry that you were down on this card.
True. Hey,
All
I'll eat
right.
my own shoe.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to the grades. I will kick us off. I've not been persuaded to go anywhere but an F.
I also have not been persuaded to go anywhere but an F.
But it does something.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
Not in my opinion.
I'm going to put this at a C.
You know what, Steven? I like this card a lot. It's a D.
Miriam Herd Whisperer gets the average grade of a D. Moving on to maybe the set's favorite legendary creature coming out. It is Obeka, Splitter of Seconds. It's one a blue, a black, and a red for a 2/5 legendary creature, Ogre Warlock. It's got Menace, and it also says whenever Obeka, Splitter of Seconds deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. Boom. That is quite the effect we've never seen before. Shane, what do you think of this? You built it.
So high on this card, dude. Yeah, I love being able to play with upkeep triggers. We saw a similar card in like not similar, but another card of upkeep triggers. It was in Doctor Who, but this one is just smashing it. Yeah, I did build it. I think it's amazing. Being able to give this thing more evasion than already having menace is fantastic. So unblockable and just getting like at minimum 2 is great, but bumping it up to 3, 4, 5, like it just can get nuts. And then some of the best cards that have upkeep triggers are enchantments, so you can get all the courts. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are tons of creatures that have fantastic upkeep triggers. Like, you could take this deck in a bunch of different directions. I think she's fantastic, and I can't wait for David to try to sway me otherwise.
Before we swing over, I just want to remind everybody, if you guys haven't seen that deck tech that Shane made, it is on the channel. Check the description for that. But yeah, Shane, I completely agree with you. Those courts, especially, I mean, just one out of the ones you could play, Court of Ambition, that says at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If you're the Monarch, instead, each opponent loses 6 and they discard 2. Imagine that being however many power Obeka has at the time that it swings in and does damage, because wow.
Yeah.
So here is the thing. I think this card is incredibly swingy. I will admit this has the potential to be incredibly powerful. However, it does also have a very low floor. And that being that this is a commander that does need to connect in order for it to literally do anything. Obviously, yes, it has the menace built in there, so like it does have a little bit of built-in evasion, which is a positive. The downside of this, however, is that if this does not connect, your deck did not do a thing. My other thought here being is like this is something that you are telegraphing to your opponents of like what you are going to be doing as you're setting up. And as Steven mentioned in our last video, he does not like projecting what his game plan is going to be. So if I am a player and I know that I don't have the like ability to block a creature with menace, I'm going to be much more incentivized to actually save my kill spell for this commander. Or because it only has 2 power, I'm probably just going to chump and throw like my 2 utility creatures in front of this, and it may not actually even kill them. So I will admit this card does have some power whenever it can connect, but if it's not consistently connecting, I think this card is not very good.
Nope, didn't swing me.
Yeah, same here.
Didn't swing me either. Let me just say, I will give David credit where credit's due, and the fragility of this card too. If you're building around just doing a bunch of stuff on our upkeep and this is not on the field, then you're not getting as much value. Granted, there are plenty of ways in this color to give this unblockable, so you can always guarantee that you connect. Just throw a Rogue's Passage in if you want to. Just continuously connect. But
I mean, I don't know if I like that analogy too much.
What do you mean?
Yeah, Rogue's Passage. Wow, I'm combining cards at this point, but Rogue's Passage does nothing to prevent from a path to exile.
No, I understand that. Sure, I'm just saying it just to enable the ability to connect.
I was more saying that Rogue's Passage really limits what you could play in that turn.
Yeah, you gotta be set up if you're playing that.
It's a ton of mana to invest just to hopefully get 2 upkeeps. Plus, who says you have the court on the field? You know what I mean? So,
well, obviously, you're not going to be playing just Rogue's Passage immediately.
I know. I'm just saying. I think that there's just other ways to get around it. I think giving this card evasion with the blue, destroying things with the black mana or even the red mana. I think there's tons of versatility here, like Shane was saying. There's tons of tutors, especially in these colors. Tons of ways to get a ton of mana to do fun things. Protection. It's an all around banger.
Let's go ahead and move on to the grades for Obeka. Dave, I think you are the lowest here. What are you giving it?
I probably am. Because the floor is literally do nothing, I'm going to give this card a C.
I'm going to go not all the way. I understand how fragile it can be. And I mean, even the card, it's broken glass. But it's a B for me.
Shooting up to an A.
And I'm right there with you, buddy.
Obeka, Splitter of Seconds, gets the average grade of a B. Moving on to Rakdos, the Muscle. It's 2 black, and a red for a 6/5 legendary creature Demon Mercenary. It's got flying and it's got trample, and it also says whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library until your next end step. Until your next end step, you may play those cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. It also has another ability where you can sacrifice another creature. Rakdos the Muscle gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it, activate only once each turn. That's a lot of things that Rakdos is doing. What do we think about this card? Mr. Rakdos, just kidding. Shane, what do you think?
Whoa, you're pulling an audible. Here we go.
That's right.
I think he's cool. I'm sure David's gonna have much more in depth about the Lord of Muscle because I don't play this as much. But the first thing I thought of when I looked at this card was invoke spells. Because invoke spells typically you cast them for cheaper, and they're really probably bigger creatures. So when you do sacrifice the bigger creature for the invoke spell or the invoke cost, you'll get to do something bigger. I think that's pretty neat. Giving him the ability to save himself is pretty neat too. There's a lot going for this. I feel like if you're playing sacrifice, he's a good target or a good like commander. He's kind of expensive, 5 mana, but he's a 6/5 flying trampler. So commander damage could be a real thing.
You know what would be a really good card in this deck, David?
Yes.
Prosper Tonebound.
Oh God, I hate you.
Perfect card in this. But
I do agree.
We will go to David now. Rakdos, your favorite kind of enemy, I guess. Yeah. What do you think of this card?
I mean, look, this is my favorite guild, and it is the leader of said favorite guild. So, like, there's a lot to like here. 5 mana for a 6/5, like Shane mentioned, is very real. This is evasive, and it's going to get through for damage. So, like, commander damage, once again, like he said, is very much so a thing. My brain kind of immediately goes to how can I capitalize on that first ability of, like, sacrificing something to exile out the top cards of your library. There are a couple of ways to do that infinitely. So there are some combo routes that I can see with him. Generally speaking, I'm not the biggest fan of like playing the top card of your opponent's library. But worst case scenario, he can still grab lands. So that's pretty dope. The last ability on this card, I will actually say it is cool that it sacrifices something else that you control. However, Indestructible in Commander really doesn't do a whole lot. It'll protect him from most board wipes. But most spot removal at this point does exile, so it's not going to save him from everything.
I like how you can chain this off in terms of you can sacrifice something of your own, get something from your opponent, play that, sacrifice that, continue that loop over and over. I think that's pretty cool.
I mean, this Phyrexian Altar and Gravecrawler, as well as one additional zombie, wins you the game. You exile all of your opponent's libraries.
Wow, you broke it, Dave.
Seems pretty good. What do you think, Steven?
I think it's a great card.
Cool. Let's move on to the grades. We will start with Steven. Steven, you got a lot of input. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I do enjoy the way you guys are talking about playing this. I just really like to steal my opponent's things and then sacrifice those things. And for that, I'm going to give this a B.
I'm on board with you. I think I'm going to give Rakdos a B as well.
I don't want to give this a B for David. I can't be biased. I'll give it a B.
I'm actually also going to give this a B, although I will admit this is probably my second favorite printing of Rakdos.
Do you like the art too?
Not as much.
All right. Well, Rakdos the Muscle gets the average grade of a B. Moving on to Riku of Many Paths. It is a green, a blue, and a red for a 3/3 legendary creature human wizard. It says whenever you cast a modal spell, choose up to X, where X is the number of times you chose a mode for that spell. You can exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play it. Or you could put a +1/+1 counter on Riku of Many Paths. It gains trample until end of turn. Or you can create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. A lot of different modes here, right, Steven?
3, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Our boy can count.
That's right. This is a fun commander, man.
Is
This would
it?
be fun to build around.
This is something. I don't know if I'd say fun.
I think it's
Very
pretty
weird.
cool. So unfortunately, the rulings of Riku of Many Paths say that you can't choose the same one more than once, which doesn't actually say on the card, but whatever. If you do cast multiple modal spells, though, you can choose the same one twice. So, I don't know. I think this is pretty cool. Yeah, but Dave, what do you think?
So I'm going to be probably a little bit biased here. Part of me wants to hate this card. And part of me wants to hate this card because it brings me back to a time of my life where I first started playing Magic and I first started playing Commander. And that was back in college. And I had a roommate and a close friend of mine who built Riku of True Reflections. One of the very first Commander cards printed from the first Commander product. And I remember that thing absolutely destroying me on many, many, many occasions. So, like, there is a part of me that, like, I look at this card and I'm just like, if that makes any sense. Where it's just like, it brings me back and I'm just like, oh God, those are memories that I don't enjoy. But I do think that this card is cool. It's very unique. I love how it kind of like incentivizes you to play those modal spells. At the same time, however, is this card good? I'm gonna say probably not. I don't know if I'm gonna have the same disdain for this card as what I did for the original Riku, but I do think that this card is very unique and it is very cool.
I'll say that it's
With the new
unique, but
spree
shit,
cards are pretty cool too, because those are modal spells.
that's a really heavy constraint on the deck building. Like you're playing a shit ton of modal. Guess it
Yeah,
could
but
be
then you
good.
got things that, like, if you were to play X, cost X less or something like that, you can get those modal spells kind of cheap. But I don't know. I think this is just added value to modal cards. So it's a modal on a modal.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and move on to the grades. What are you giving this card, David?
You know what? Okay, so one of the things that I do whenever I evaluate cards is I look at the floor on the card, so I look at how potentially bad the card is. And this card does nothing if I'm not casting modal spells. I'm going to give this a D, but I do acknowledge like there is some power here.
I really can't go that low. I still think it's a lot of fun. I like the card design. I think it's very different. So for that reason, I'm just going to get middle of the road. I'm giving it a C.
I can appreciate that it's cool card design and it's different, like everyone's been saying, but I still, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a D.
And kind of like I started the video off, I wasn't very thrilled with this card, and that's why I'm going to give it a B.
Riku of Many Paths gets the average grade of a C. Moving on to Roxanne, Starfall Savant. It is 3, a red and a green for a 4/3 legendary creature cat druid. It says whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, create a tapped colorless artifact token named Meteorite with when Meteorite enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target and tap add 1 mana of any color. It also says whenever you tap an artifact token 4 mana, add 1 mana of any type that artifact token produced. I love this card. This is my favorite legendary out of the set. I'll say it right now. And I have built this for my own personal use, and I love it. I'm waiting on some cards in the mail, but it's fantastic. You can kill people with meteors. There is a combo. Crazy, David. We've made a combo with Food Chain. But if you do the Food Chain combo, you just kill people with meteorites, and that's cool.
So wait, you built a deck that can hold the food chain combo? This guy needs an award.
This guy, Food Chain combo goes in this deck, but not only that, if you got stuff like Replicating Ring and other things that make token copies of themselves, Those, because they are tokens, can now tap for double the mana. And this also includes treasures. Anything that has a tap symbol that makes mana is doubled.
Sorry.
I don't know. I do have a fairly large problem with this card.
What's that?
She's a cat, but she has hands. She doesn't have paws.
Cheese Cat Druid.
I understand that.
If that's the only thing you got wrong with this card, then I think this card's doing pretty good.
I mean, 5 mana, I guess, would be the other thing, but red has rituals and green has mana ramp, and I've learned from the experience playing against this thing that meteorites are actually real, and they're kind of a pain in the butt. They're treasures, but they don't go away.
They
They
don't go
hurt.
away. Yeah.
I got
So
some,
this
So-
ramps into some insane things in Gruul.
I got to
Not
sit
only
into
does
a
it-
game, dude. It was bad.
Yeah. Not only does it ramp into some insane things in Gruul, it also ramps back into the commander because it makes commander tax kind of not a thing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. What do you think, Steven?
It's a cat.
All right, moving
Perfect
on. I'm just
analysis.
Any other analysis there?
Meow.
She's holding a floating rock, and there's a chicken.
That's a meteor, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that
It's a
it? really,
meteor,
Steven?
right? I mean, listen, you guys pretty much said it all. It's Gruul. Tons of ways to get this out fast. Hunter's doing combo stuff. Enough said.
All right, enough said indeed. Let's go ahead and move on to the grades. I will kick us off. I can't give Roxanne anything lower than an A.
I know. I got crushed by Roxanne. So I'm gonna give her an A too.
Like I've mentioned in the last couple cards, I typically look at a floor whenever I try to evaluate a new commander to see kind of like how good they are. So I hate this so much. I'm going to give this card a B.
Same. B.
Well, Roxanne Starfall Savant gets the average grade of an A. Moving on to Satoru, the Infiltrator. It is a blue and a black for a 2/3 legendary creature human ninja rogue. It's got menace and it says whenever it and or one or more other non-token creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if none of them were cast or no mana was spent to cast them, draw a card. Shooting it right back at you, Steven. What do we think of Satoru?
No.
You don't like Demir
Wow.
doing Demir things?
I don't know, man. I mean, ninjutsu is always a good way to go about it. Ninjutsu is so expensive for some cards, and I really like the other Satoru, and I think it does it way better. Obviously, plot is a thing in this set, so that's very helpful. But I don't know. I'm not very high on this card. I love the fact that it comes down super early. I love the evasion with menace. I love that it's a 2/3. But I mean, can't even work on itself. Gotta cast your commander with mana.
I mean,
You
I don't
ninjutsu
think
it.
it needs to work on itself. I mean, if you got gear in black here too, you can just bring back creatures. When they enter the battlefield, you just draw a card on top of it. That seems pretty good.
Yep. This is a reanimation commander. This is so good for reanimation. You're in the correct colors. And normally, whenever you're reanimating something, you're not actually casting that creature. So you're just going to draw a card whenever you reanimate. Or you're going to draw a card whenever you suspend or ninjutsu or like do any of those things.
Card draw wins games.
It's 2 mana.
True.
I'm still not there.
How? I don't get it.
I don't know how we convinced the Demir player to like the Demir card that has upside. Steven, do you not like drawing cards?
I do love drawing cards. I think there's better ways to go about it.
I agree with you.
What if it was just passive though?
I mean, there's still better ways passively to draw cards.
Well, okay, Steven, we can't convince you anymore. So let's go ahead and move on to the grades. I want to hear what you've given it.
I mean, it's a C. I'll never. No, I think I've given Demir a D before for Demir, but I'll stick with a C here. I see the upside. I'm not here for it.
He sees the upside.
Yep, I see the upside too. It's a B.
I do see that it's good, but the middle of the road C for me.
This is a cheap commander, so it's going to come out early. However, it's not going to trigger very often. So the occasional draw a card is probably what you're going to get out of this. I'm going to give this a D.
God, I love it.
We just
Fucking
got bamboozled so hard.
fills my heart with so much joy, dude.
How interesting.
Ugh.
Satoru, the Infiltrator, gets the average grade of a C. Moving on to another familiar face, it is Selvala, Eager Trailblazer. It's 2 a green and a 5 legendary creature elf scout. It's got vigilance and says whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Also has another ability when tap it, choose a color. Add 1 mana of that color for each different power among creatures you control. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when this card was spoiled, I just hated it because it just dealt with a lot of mental math for me.
Mental math. I mean, you have 4 creatures with 4 different power. You tap it for 4.
I mean, sure. I mean, I get that to a certain extent, but it was just like, oh, I put a +1/+1 kind here. Oh no, that makes that one a 2/2, and that's a 2/2. So that I gotta tap this to make this a +1, and then damn, it's still only 3. Too much. It's too much.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Besides the elementary math, I think the fact that it's a 4 mana that taps for mana, it's like a ramp that's late. Like why? Like weird. It's just weird.
It's ramping you into bigger stuff.
I mean, it is an elf. You could play like the stupid elf ball thing, but like, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, this is making you 2 creatures with 2 different power, so at least it'll tap for 2 the next turn when it's not sick. I don't know. And that's coming down at 4 mana value, so you could have different powers among the things you played before this. So I don't know. It could be good.
I think Shane kind of covered my point.
Uh-oh. I hate when I do that.
No, like I think you and I are on the same page here.
Okay.
Because like it is a mana dork. It wants to help progress you throughout the rest of the game, but it comes down kind of in the mid game, so it's a little weird.
Love how turn 4 is mid game.
Kinda.
Yeah. You don't see the decks that I typically like to play that, I guess.
No, I do.
I don't know. If it costs 3, it's normally where I like to be. 4, 5, 6, anything greater than that, I typically try to limit the number of those in my deck. I don't know. Maybe this is also just a little bit of a bias because I don't generally like big mana decks. I don't know, man. I don't really have a whole lot of positive to say on this. I don't really think I'm here for a mana dork that costs 4. I don't think this Selvala is good as the last Selvala. I don't think it makes as much mana, and it's more expensive.
Nothing's better than that other. The mono green Savalla is just insane.
Banger.
But yeah, she makes a ton of mana, and she comes down a turn earlier.
And I wouldn't even play any like creatures in that deck other than Eldrazi. That'd be nuts.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to the grades. I will give Selvala Eagle Trailblazer a D.
That's my boy. I'm right there with you, buddy. It's a D.
I think I'm there as well. It's a D.
This hurts. I'm in agreement. It's a D.
Well, Selvala Eager Trailblazer gets the average grade of a D. Moving on to Taii Wakeen, Perfect Shot. It is a red and a white for a 2/3 legendary creature human mercenary. It says whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to a creature equal to that creature's toughness, draw a card. You can also pay X, tap it. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player this turn, it deals that much damage plus X instead. This is a weird one. As the resident Boros player, I am not a fan of this card whatsoever because you were trying to deal non-combat damage to a creature that has to specifically equal that creature's toughness to even draw a card. I understand that it comes with a little attachment there that says if it doesn't actually get there, we can get that damage there by paying into it, which I think is also quite terrible. This is not good.
So do you think that Taii Wakeen here is standing on top of a hill with a bunch of hoops in front of it?
What?
Quite possibly, yes.
Because you have to jump through so many hoops to get
Hunter didn't get the joke. It went
goal
over
you
his head.
want. Yeah, I know.
I get it now. I get it.
I get it now.
Basically, if the damage you're dealing kills the thing, you draw a card. Cool.
Equal.
Yeah.
It can't just kill it. You can't go over. You go over, you don't draw the card.
Wait, so if I deal excess damage to a creature, you don't draw a card?
That's correct.
That card's
That is
stupid,
what
dude.
equal means.
Bro,
Well, here,
I'm
okay.
over it.
I'm thinking about this card now, and I
No, you're
think
not.
David is probably gonna talk about this now.
I don't care.
Ignore the front sentence now. Just talk about that second.
Yep.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about that bottom part because that says when we deal damage to a player, which means we can go ahead and take a pinger, and if we're pinging everybody's face, then we can deal that much damage plus however much X we put into this. There are triplers that are damage dealers in these colors. Shane, you know one City on Fire deal triple the amount of damage. Seems pretty wild.
Nah.
Yep. Thank you, Hunter.
You're welcome. I got there in the end. It took me a while to think about it, but I was like, wait a minute.
You know, now that I think about it, when I talk about cards, I like to look at the floor. And I think if this card's not there, I'm not doing anything.
Very much true. Unless you have infinite mana, you're gonna die. This deck's gonna do nothing.
I disagree. I
You
think
need
if you
infinite
have
mana,
those
dude.
triple damage, like there are cards to get around this, especially cards that specifically say it deals damage to each opponent, because that gets around this. You're going to be putting however much into the X, and you're going to be doing that much damage to each opponent.
Yeah, but it's player.
Yeah, but now I think about the floor, and
I'm with Steven on the floor, dude.
Yeah, I don't see it. I think me and Shane are on the floor
I
together.
don't even want to let David talk about those cards.
All right, let's move on to grades.
David, go ahead.
This is cheap, and I think that it has that low enough to the ground factor and the kind of dismissive factor where you're probably not going to hate on this. But like, I completely see the route that Hunter was just talking about. That's what I think of whenever I think of this card. I think of like, okay, well, how can like Thermo Alchemist or like a Spellslinger deck that can capitalize on cards like Aria of Flame take advantage of this, where it's like, okay, you know what? I pay for 2 and I tap it and I cast 3 spells. And then I just hit you for whatever that amount of damage is going to be. So like you're going to nuke players' life totals out of nowhere with this card. This is one of those commanders that is going to do like nothing and then just suddenly out of nowhere just win the game because it's going to drop your opponent's life totals so quickly. So I do think this is one that your opponents are probably going to have to keep an eye on. I do think this is one that's like it's not going to build up a whole lot of hate because it's going to hit the board on turn 2 and it's not really going to do a whole lot. And then the turn it actually does a whole lot, it's going to hit you for 30 damage and you're not going to have like the ability to actually respond to this thing.
Honestly, David, I don't even think I would cast this turn 2. I'd cast this when I'm ready. Like if you get something that gives this haste and then you can cast this later in the game when you have all your pieces set up, bang, win the game.
Killing this card immediately.
Yeah, but let's look at the floor.
Thank you, Stephen.
Look, I will admit the floor on this card is like you are probably playing cards that are not like necessarily optimal. You're probably putting a Lightning Bolt in this deck, which Lightning Bolt is not really like it's not a great card in a game of Commander. But if you do spend a Lightning Bolt with this and you kill a 3 toughness creature, like you're at least drawing a card. So you are progressing your board state to an extent. I just look at like this is a card that does have that inevitability factor. Like your opponents cannot look at this and be like, okay, well, it's not actively contributing to the board state. To me, it's the same kind of effect as like a Spellslinger, like what you typically see with Izzet, where it's like, okay, well, they have 1 creature in play. So like, should I just leave them alone and deal with the player who has like 12 creatures? Or should I forget that the Izzet deck doesn't actually care about creatures and is just going to be able to win out of nowhere? Because that's kind of what I see with this card too. Is like this has the close the game whenever everybody's sitting at 40 life and doesn't expect you to just be able to close the game factor.
You know what would be a really good card in this too? Is that brand new card, Shane? High Noon.
High
Everybody ca-
noon.
Everybody can't cast one spell per turn.
Hey, you know what I was told once by a really wise man?
What's
You're
that?
putting a bunch of suboptimal cards to make a commander good. Probably not a good commander.
I'm a wise man.
Yeah, I meant
Here,
a man.
here's the thing though, is that like cards like Thermo Alchemist, Electrostatic Field, those other little like pingers, they're not bad cards.
I know, you just named 3 so far out of 99.
Man, I'll
Oh,
tell
no,
you
no.
what, I
There's a
didn't
ton
think
of
we'd talk
pingers.
about this card this long.
I didn't think so either.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to the grades. I've changed my grade here, boys. I was really low on this card when we first started talking about it, but I'm all the way up to a B.
Hmm.
The floor would be an F now that I think about it.
What's the floor then, Steven?
It's a C.
I too feel like this is going to sit right on the floor to see.
That perfect shot she's holding, that is not a sniper rifle. That is an
energy.
RPG.
Oh,
This thing is a B. It's gonna kill you one time. You're gonna be shocked. Your draw's gonna hit the floor, and then from there on out, you're gonna realize, wait a second, I actually probably do need to use removal on their 2-mana commander.
Taii Wakeen, perfect shot, gets the average grade of a B. Moving on to the Gitrog, Ravenous Ride. It is 3 a black and a green for a 6/5 legendary creature frog horror mount. It's got trample, it's got haste, and it says whenever the Gitrog Ravenous Ride deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that's saddled it this turn. If you do, draw X cards, then put up to X land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. Got a saddle of just 1. David, you have always loved the Gitrog. What do we think about this one?
I do love our big frog beatdown. I don't know how I feel about this one. On one hand, it's 5 mana for a 6/5 that's gonna get in for damage immediately. It also has sacrifice, which I love. And it's got ramp, which I love. And card draw, which I love. I'm talking myself up on this card.
It's a very, very good card, David. I will say real quick, David, why is there no leg coming out of this guy's, or no arm coming out of this guy's mouth?
What do you mean? What arm are you talking about?
Gitrog normally has an arm sticking out of his mouth.
Oh, I thought you were alluding to his last partner pairing, and I was going to say Thalia is totally fine, okay? You just can't see her, but she's still there. She'll be there to tax your dreams later on. I mean, like, my only downside, I guess, with this card is you can't saddle it with a 0 power creature.
Why would you ever want to?
But then nothing happens. Like, what the?
Yeah.
I'm gonna draw 0 cards.
I think this card's fantastic, dude. You saddle it up with a little stupid thing, and it just does so much stuff, and you don't even care if the thing dies. And then you're gonna
No.
kill everyone, and then you're gonna like this does so like what you said to talk yourself up. You didn't have to talk me up, dude. I've been already talked up. I'm talked up.
You're thinking about this wrong.
I'm
No, I'm not.
so talked up. got
You
my
saddle
banana.
this with your Ulamog, and you're a shit ton of cards.
You know, I was just thinking saddling things that have like death triggers, like just a Solemn Simulacrum, something like that. It's just anything that you can get additional bonus for just sacrificing. That
You're gonna-
sounds pretty good.
I mean, this goes nuts with Field of the Dead.
That's a lot of things. What are you talking about, dude? This card's just nuts. I like it.
I mean, yeah, like any deck that cares about lands or drawing cards, I mean, like those rampant drawing cards are generally not good in Commander.
I love the fact that you don't even have to sack a non-token creature. So, like Steven is alluding to, you can go ahead and sack those zombies you're making with Field of the Dead and just keep making them if you keep hitting your lands. Pretty good.
I can't wait
think
to
we're-
see this on our like table of Magic Night. That's gonna be so annoying when David builds this deck.
I'll still be sacrificing Ulamog to this. It'll be saddling it. I want you to have that in your brain. An Eldrazi on the back of this frog.
Okay.
I think we're all pretty high on this. Let's go ahead and move on to the grades right away. David, kick us off.
We're gonna
Just
do
do
it,
it, man.
It's an A.
You don't have
Okay,
to be so
thank you.
sad. Yeah, it's an A.
It's an A.
It's an A. Look at all of us, huh? The Gitrog Ravenous Ride gets the average grade of an A. Moving on to Vial Smasher Gleeful Grenadier. It is a black and a red for a 3/2 legendary creature goblin mercenary. This is whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, Vial Smasher Gleeful Grenadier deals 1 damage to target opponent. Very good in standard, not so much in commander, I'd say. Having the outlaw stipulations stuck onto this card kind of limits it from just saying every time a creature comes in, deals 1 damage. Granted, you can throw in those kind of effects as well because you're in the color combination, but dealing 1 damage to target opponent, card doesn't do a lot. I think this is a lot more of a support piece than the actual commander.
I agree. Like I was gonna bring up the fact that it's real good in standard at the moment, but unless one of these jokers talk me into it, very possible. I don't think it's a good card.
Steven, are you going to talk him into it, or is it me?
I mean, I'm not like 100% against this card. Some fun synergies, but it's very meh.
All right, well, Shane,
Yes, Dave?
it looks like it's neither of us that are
Okay,
going to
good.
talk you into this
Okay.
card.
Okay, good.
It's acute impact tremors that sometimes is going to trigger in your command zone for a specific target player.
Well, it can't target in your command zone. I know what you're trying to say.
You know what I mean.
Let's move on to the grades.
Please.
We'll start with Mr. Rakdos. Dave, what do you give Vial Smasher?
This card sucks. I'm actually going to give it an F. I don't think I like this card at all.
I completely agree. I was gonna say, D, it does something, but no, it's still an F.
It's going to be an F for me as well.
It does something. So it's an F.
Thank you.
From an A to an F, Vial Smasher Gleeful Grenadier gets the average grade of an F. Moving on to a very familiar face, it's Vraska, the Silencer. It's 1 black and a green for a 3/3 legendary creature, Gorgon Assassin. It's got Death Touch, and it says whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, you may pay 1. If you do, return that card to the battlefield tapped under your control. It's a treasure artifact with tap, sack this artifact, and add 1 mana of any color, and loses all other card types.
Does it keep
What do
its
we think?
power and toughness?
It just turns straight into a treasure.
Oh.
But if that creature had abilities like with ETBs and stuff like that, or just in general, you still get those.
Got it. Interesting card.
Which is why this card is a banger.
Yeah. You gotta pay your taxes, Steven. But it's gonna be good tax.
You gotta pay your own taxes 100%.
It will be an interesting play.
Tell me.
Revel in riches, and every time you kill your opponent's stuff, you're getting closer to winning.
Are you trying to tell me that Revel and Riches is a good card with treasure?
It is, but not only that, this guarantees you get treasure no matter, just board wipe, you get a bunch of treasure. Granted, you do have to pay 1.
You would get double the treasure at that point if you pay 1, right?
No, you have to pay the 1 to.
Well, yeah, but you get
Treasure.
1 from Revel and Riches, period.
True.
That's what I'm saying, is you get double then.
Like, this card is good. The only downside here being is that, it does incentivize you to kill your opponent's things, which is probably going to get old pretty quickly whenever they start to see that you're removing their stuff. So I do see a world in which this is probably going to get hated on. At the same time, you're making treasure. So, as long as she's doing her thing, she's going to be generating that value and making away with the commander tax. So, no, she's kind of all over the place for me.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is you're paying 1 to get free treasure, right? If a creature and opponent dies. It doesn't even have to be you that killed it.
That you're
If it's
paying,
just-
so not free.
Yeah, but you're paying for 1 to use later, right? If your opponents are killing each other and they're just losing their things, you're just like, oh, by the way, I'll take your creature as a treasure, please.
Wasn't there a spider that did something like this where it came back as a artifact token?
Food.
Oh,
From the Lord of
food.
the Rings set.
That's right, it was
Lord of the
food. Never
Rings
mind,
set,
not as
yeah.
good. Treasure's better than food.
True.
This
I don't
card's
know.
fantastic. You don't have to be killing your opponent's stuff. Even in combat damage, you pay the 1, you bring it back. You can use this card to kill your opponent's utility creatures and then make that utility your own utility. It's not once per turn. It's not at sorcery speed. This is death touch. Like, I so love this card.
I don't know. I think I would be more in love with this card if it had first strike because of the whips.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, if it had first strike with death touch, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, dude.
Because whips,
Staple it on there,
whips are like
Wizards.
first strike, right, Dave?
First strike death touch is your combination to like never lose combat. I
I
think that
know.
would probably push this over the edge.
But whips.
But whips. Let's go ahead and move on to the grades. We will start with Steven. Steven, what are you giving Vraska?
A.
Wow. I don't think I'm that high, like, at all. So I'm going to give it middle of the road here. I'm giving it a C.
I too. And more middle of the road C.
Ooh, she taxes you and is kind of a hate generator.
Bring the hate.
I think I might give her a D.
You're crazy, dude.
Wait,
All
is
right,
that
you've convinced me. I'll give her a C.
Thank you.
The average grade for Vraska is going to be a B.
Damn right.
Moving on to the final card we're talking about in all of our commander grades for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It is Wylie Duke, Atiin Hero. It is 1, a green and a white for a 4/2 legendary creature human ranger. It's got vigilance, and it says when it becomes tapped, you gain a life and draw a card.
cool?
Gotta find ways to tap this because of a vigilance. You can't tap it when it attacks.
I mean, you can mount it, or you can use it to mount.
That's true.
Kind of a bummer card to end on, huh?
You don't like him?
Really? I don't think it has anything going for it really for me. Dies in like every single combat interaction.
What do you think, Dave?
I think that you don't want to use this thing actually for combat. I think that you want to use this as like a payoff for you to be able to just like tap and untap and be able to do that back and forth. And there are a couple of ways that like you can take advantage of that. So to be able to draw cards and gain life is pretty relevant. Draw cards especially. So this card actually makes me immediately think of things like Cryptolith Rite, Springleaf Drum. There is, what is it, like Honor Worn Shaku, I think is the name of the artifact that like you can tap down a creature to be able to make 1 mana of any color. And that's going to allow you to draw a card while also being able to net a mana. Sure, it'll gain you life. I don't think the life is really all that important. I don't actually think I'm going to be like tempted to build a mount or vehicle deck to be able to take advantage of this. I'm more so like, how can I tap and untap this creature reliably to be able to draw cards? And I do actually think that there are probably enough of those abilities to take advantage of that card draw where this could probably reliably draw me a card maybe every turn, possibly even more.
You also
So-
got another card like Nature's Chosen, where you can just tap down a creature, tap the enchanted creature down, and then untap it, and then tap it down again.
Yep. I mean, my other thought being something like a Seedborn Muse, where it's like you're untapping this during each of your opponent's turns to be able to tap it back down with one of your other card's abilities. So I don't know, man. The floor on this card is not great, but the ceiling on this card is that like I'm drawing 4 extra cards per turn cycle.
Steven,
True.
talk to me about the floor.
The floor is there, and
Okay.
it's not good.
Okay.
We've made it to the floor.
I mean, you really need an untapper to do what you're trying to do. And I know there's ways to do it, but you're just doing so much work just to gain 1 life and draw a card. I don't find a point. So many hoops.
I'm over it.
Let's go ahead and move on to the grades, and we will start with Steven.
It's a D from me.
Steven, I agree. It's a D.
I think I'm a little different, and I think it might be with David. I'm going to give this a C, middle of the road,
David didn't give his grade. How can you be with him?
because I have a feeling.
Because he knows me. Because of the potential synergies that I can see with this card, I'm going to give it a C. I don't
And-
think this is a card that your opponents are going to use removal on, and I do think that this is a commander that you can set up fairly easily to draw a ton of cards on.
Wylie Duke gets the average grade of a C. And that is going to do it for our final video of Commander Grades for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. If you guys made it this far, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed already to stay up to date with everything else that we got going on. Down there, comment. Let us know. Did you guys agree with these grades? Maybe you disagreed with them. Always interested to hear what you guys have to say. If you guys haven't already seen the other Commander Grades videos, check the description. Get caught up on the other grades that we gave. While you're in the description, you'll find links to all of our social media accounts. That's TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us along on all of those as well. And on the screen, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your added support. It means the world to us. If you guys wanted to check out what they are seeing, which is not here on YouTube, check the description for the Patreon link and consider subscribing. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.